We cover the latest topics and trends making waves across the sport and chat with our industry's most prominent leaders, so your golf business stays one step ahead. Welcome to Golf Business Live, powered by Club Caddy. Here's NGCOA CEO Jay Karen, and owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club and secretary of the PGA of America, Don Ray.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the March 2022 episode of Golf Business Live. We are excited to be here, powered by Club Caddy. Thank you, of course, to our friends at Club Caddy for supporting the show here. I'm Jay Karen, Chief Executive of the National Golf Course Owners Association, and the egg to my ham is Don Ray, owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club in Mesa, Arizona, and Secretary of the PGA of America. Don, how the heck are you, and how are things in Mesa, Arizona, my friend?
Oh, it's booming. I mean, the weather's been perfect. That's what's kind of amazing about it. I mean, so many people are playing golf right now. And, you know, the spring training thing I thought could be damaging to us. At the end of the day, people were coming out here anyways, and they couldn't go to a game. So they were just playing golf. And, you know, I think facilities like mine, I'm certainly not a destination for some that are coming out, but the Scottsdale golf courses are. So as they get overloaded, I get the spill off. And so it's certainly, I'm so happy I'm doing dynamic pricing, because the prices we were charging based on our overflow of demand were staggering. I didn't think I could ever get there. And I don't think we're taking advantage of the situation. We're just trying to do what we can, you know, make hay while the sun's shining, because the summer's coming. And that's when those 120-degree days kind of nobody wants to play then.
Yeah, I get that. And it's good to hear that baseball's back on, and that'll help you out. Yeah. So, you know, today on the show, I know you're looking forward to this as well. We have Jim Koppenhaver, from the founder and president of Pellucid. We're going to bring him on in a little while and talk industry numbers and prognostication and all kinds of things with our good friend Jim. It's going to be a fun chat. So, you know, audience members that are watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, you know, we'll try to get to your comments, but feel free to chime in your channel of choice there, and we'll try to get to some of those questions and comments through our show. Thanks for being here. So, Don, I want to highlight a few things around the industry that have been happening this last month. Some things that we've kind of published out there as well. So, Golf Business Weekly, I think last week, we featured an article from our friend JJ Keegan, and it was about online tee time practices. And he was essentially kind of lamenting that it's just a waste of labor to be taking tee times on the phone and all of that. Like, let's just move this all online and either reduce your labor or, as I would say, probably repurpose your labor for other things. Right. And so, but, you know, one thing that, and I want to ask you two questions, actually. What is your online tee time policy at Augusta Ranch as far as requiring them to book online? All that, because there are courses now that are pushing everybody to go online to book, whether through fiat or through incentive. Like, they might charge you more if you book it over the phone, like the airlines do. If you want to book with me on the phone, I'm going to charge you $2 extra fee or whatever. But one of the things that he brought up that he called an antiquated policy, which I've always had questions about, is the booking window policy in our industry. And that, you know, if I want to book a hotel 4 months from now in Washington, D.C., or, you know, I can do that. And in fact, they would love to have my business, you know, that far in advance. But in the golf industry, at public golf courses, actually at private clubs too, it happens, is there's oftentimes like a 7-day window or maybe 14-day window to even book. So you can't book far in advance at all in many cases. Why? And he's saying that's antiquated. We got to get rid of that. We have to allow people to, you know, book farther in advance, even maybe for a premium, which a lot of courses are doing. They're charging extra to grab those tee times far in advance. So what's the rationale behind keeping a policy like that in place? And the only thing I thought of, and you correct me here because you're the golf course operator, is if you load the tee times a month in advance, or you sprinkle a Tuesday with 10 tee times taken, it removes your ability to maybe have an outing, right? Like, you can't say, sorry, the 10 of you that booked, we're going to shove you out of the tee time because we got a charity outing coming now that we didn't know we were going to have. Is that the only rationale, is to try to preserve those blocks of time for those precious corporate and charity outings? Talk to me.
You know, I think it's hilarious that we've basically gone, you know, we've gone backwards in a sense of when I first got in the industry. I'll never forget, Eagle Mountain was charging $15 more if you wanted to book 30 days in advance. And then all of a sudden we taught all these young golf professionals that, oh, man, we just got to we tried to create demand by pricing, right? I mean, that's what we did. We lowered it, tried to get people out. We're adding hot dogs, sleeves of balls, whatever it takes. And so really, I think a lot of these golf professionals now, they don't even know what it's like when we had demand. Now I'm trying to control demand by pricing the other way. I keep pricing higher in order to control demand because I have too many people who want to play. So you ask a lot of questions there, but I'll start with this one. Certainly you can book a tee time at Augusta Ranch, and we want you to. And through pricing, we're trying to encourage you and incentivize you to book online because the best pricing is going to be there. I've had a call center for a while. I was never on the Easy Links call center, but when when Andy started the other company, W5, I've been on that, and that doesn't exist anymore. He got rid of it. And so now we are not on a call center anymore, which changes the game. So we're actually looking at that now, how we can push more people to booking online. I didn't mind the call center because I felt like there were people dedicated to getting the data that we could get, because at the golf course, you don't tend to ask those questions because there's a line in front of you.
Right.
So we always thought the call center was a good thing, because we could do that, but now there's no call center. So we've hired some people to answer the phone, but now we need to do something in encouraging more people to book online. And then to answer your tournament question, you're exactly right. There's so many people playing right now. We have to relook at how we're booking tournaments. That's why it's fun to have Jim on the call today. If we don't have some way to predict where we're at, you are going to underprice your groups, and that's going to cost you in the long run. So at the end of the day, we have a whole bunch of golf professionals who've never dealt with demand like this. They don't know about squeezes. They hate them. I know that there's golf courses across the nation that these golf shop assistants are booking, in a sense, starter times and putting them under fake names because they're so busy that they're going to control it themselves. And I've been telling guys, look out for your tee sheets because it's too busy out there. But I think we just have to relook at how we're pricing and what we're doing with groups, because the new normal is,
for the last few years, we've been talking about barter opportunity costs, right?
Cool.
And, I love opportunity cost is one of my favorite phrases that I learned in economics in high school, right? And now maybe there's a case to be made to analyze group bookings, a group opportunity cost. And if you do book that charity outing or that corporate outing, what might you be giving up on the tee sheet? What revenue could you be giving up? What are the pros and cons? There are pros and cons to both, obviously, but to have that kind of data so that, to be able to know as a golf course operator that if I book something on May 15th, a group outing of 70 players during this slot, I'm going to lose revenue, based on historical. That to me is probably it would be a next bit of intelligence that could really benefit a course operator. Because barter opportunity costs we can measure pretty easily, but this one would be an interesting one.
Well, and there's other companies doing it now. The GMRC stuff that Jim's doing, awesome. Sagacity's got some tools. There's other companies that have some tools, but certainly if you're not using those tools to find out what your 3 historical booking patterns are, and you're putting in groups, I just don't see how you're going to book it properly. You're going to, and you're getting pressure from these groups because they want a better price, and they're used to getting a better price because they're bringing more people. Not anymore. I don't care if it's a 4-some or a 40-some. It doesn't matter to me. I just wanted to get them here. So I don't know, groups. I think it's going to be difficult to do groups. You're going to get upcharged now because you absolutely are displacing revenue.
I'm telling you, group booking opportunity cost. That is the next measurement we need all of our technology providers and information specialists to help us with. Very interesting. Then there was an article from Harvey Silverman that came out today, I think, that was highlighting in Colorado in particular, but at the federal level, there is a bill that passed the U.S. Senate unanimously to support daylight savings time being permanent. And I know the golf industry has had its battles on this at the state level in Indiana and Michigan and some other places. But it seems to me that if we made it permanent, it would be a boon to the golf industry. I say a boon, but it would definitely give us a lift in those golf playable hours that Jim is always talking about. When the sun is up and we can book tee times, it gives us that extra hour. So, how do what are your thoughts on permanent daylight savings?
Well, it depends on the golf course. Obviously, I'm in Arizona, so we never change the clocks here. But our ABC Scramble that we hold during the summer is one of our most successful events, and we like to start it at 5 because people can get off work and they play their 9 holes, and it's a really cool group. So getting more tee times in the morning is really not interesting me. I need more tee times after 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'm worried about this. Depending on the state that you're in, everybody's saying this is great because of the morning tee times. Listen, we're growing the game because people are going to work, and then after work they're playing golf. I need more hours at the end of the day. So whatever state you're in, you really should take a look at this. It doesn't, I mean, they passed it, right? It's like the only thing I've ever seen 100% of the people said it was a good idea. But I think you better look at your tee sheet and your sunrise and sunset times to see where it's at. And certainly I know the higher price tee times are in the morning. I get that. But I just know in the growth of the game, we need some opportunities for people getting off work and playing in a 9-hole league.
Interesting. Yeah. Going to be interesting to see where this lands in the House and at the president's desk for sure. Okay. All right. Got to touch this one, Donnie.
Here it comes. I got it.
Here we go. Here we go. There was a Facebook post that you put out the other day, last week, after you concluded the PGA of America's board meeting. I know you guys were really grappling with a lot of issues, a lot of really good stuff I know you guys are working on. And, we've talked about this a little bit on the show, and I know we're talking a lot about it in the meetings, but this whole work-life balance issue, and that if we were able to kind of fix that or crack the code or make progress on work-life balance for, I guess, certain positions, especially in the golf industry, where there used to be a badge of honor of, I worked 80 hours last week, sun up to sundown, and I closed the shop, opened the shop, closed the shop, all of these things that were kind of a badge of honor in a strange way, because it's not sustainable. We all know this. So we're trying to figure out ways to improve this, and that the onus will be on golf course owners and operators too. But you came out of the meeting and you said, PGA members, we need to work less and get paid more. And I went, wait a second, wait. Is it that simple that we need to work less and get paid more, and get paid more, define that? Because, any industry, there's a bell curve in compensation. You got people on the 70th percentile making the most in their position. Should they get paid more and work less? Is it the people on the back side of the bell curve that are working a lot and getting paid a little, and we got to fix it for that? Like it's more complicated than I think that we need, PGA members or golf professionals in general, whether the PGA or not, I suppose, working less and making more. So defend your statement, Don Ray.
Well, I think it's, I'm glad that it's creating conversation, and I'm not trying to be completely strategic, but I'm representing 28,000 men and women, and I know what they're good at. They're good at relationship. They're good at growing the game. They're good at building shot euphoria into people so that they get that more often. And so really where I'm going with that is, one, I think salaries need to go away. I might catch some heat on this one, but I'm telling you, isn't it funny that in any hospitality industry, when you get promoted, you're on salary. Here, we're going to start paying you the same price regardless of how many hours, because now you'll know exactly how much your paychecks are going to be. Well, that happened. 2 things happen to that. Either one, you're like, man, I'm paying this person's salary. They're never here. Or I'm exploiting you and you're working 60, 70 hours a week and I only have to pay one price. And so I took all the golf professionals here at Augusta Ranch off of salary. They're now an hourly. I looked at what they made last year. I created an hourly rate, and it's okay. That's what I'm going to pay you. And if you work overtime, you're going to get paid for overtime. I'm not going to use. I want to make sure that I'm not exploiting you. And what I really meant about the second one is you can make more money in the golf industry if you are being what Will Robbins calls the PGA modern coach, and what Warren Bakke, who teaches Brooks Koepka, has found out. Clinics, camps, playing lessons, getting groups of people having fun together. These individual lessons, there's a time and a place for those. But if I'm going to cover the shop counter and say I go, you know what, I'm going Target, Jay, I'm going $25 minimum wage. And I'm sure there's some Augusta Ranch people listening right now. So easy. Don't be. But say I go $25 is what I'm going to pay somebody to work the counter. I've got a golf professional who's working the counter now. Why? I don't know, because he's on salary and I'm trying to save money back in the old days. I get him out from the counter, and I say, I want 30% of your time teaching and doing groups, and I'm going to promote the heck out of this. I'm going to pay you while you're teaching, and but I want a little something back. I want $25 an hour. That's what I want. Why? Because I want to cover the counter shift. I got to cover that young person or old person, because I think that's where we're going to find the people working. It's almost like a fast food thing. Really old or really young, working the golf shop counter, directing people to the golf professionals who are maybe serving as starters, walking up and down the range, teaching camps, clinics, and playing lessons. And so they can make more money, and everybody wins. And so that's what I believe is we don't need 60 hours behind the counter. Those are the old days. We got a boatload of people on the driving range right now, and golfers are bringing other potential golfers to the game, but they don't know what to teach them. And we're not recognizing that because we're in the back counting the beans. No more bean counters. I need seed planters. I need them out there. And I think if we do that, hourly rates, making them the seed planters they are, and building the relationships that they're good at. And that's LPGA, PGA. Heck, that's a really good golf course owner. Why, as a golf course owner, are you doing your own finances? There's a boatload of bookkeepers that can do that. Maybe you should be managing your business by walking around and teaching people the love of the game, because that's the sustainability we're going to need as time, gets more committed.
A lot of wisdom in that. And I will be the first to admit, and I've been preaching this since before we found ourselves in this kind of labor shortage situation in the golf industry, is I challenge golf course owners and operators to are you a progressive business? What we're competing against is everything out there other than golf, and what employers are doing and what they're offering, and flexibility and benefits and workplace culture and that work-life balance, equation or whatever that is, that, golf is behind the curve on that. And a lot of it has to do with just being a very fragmented small business, but that if we're going to remain competitive, we have to figure out ways to crack the code on this. And I know NGCOA and the PGA of America, we're talking together on this particular topic, because it's got to be both. It's got to be the employer understanding and being able to put forward things that work for the business, while at the same time, looking at the sustainability of our team. We don't want burnout. We don't want people to leave the industry saying, well, that sucked. I would never work there again, or shouldn't work in the golf industry. So I'm glad that we're kind of on this together, which is a good thing. But I was being tongue in cheek when I said how simple you are making the equation, because it isn't that simple. It's actually very complicated. But I think there's a way through on this. So, and we're going to focus on it together, I think, for a good while here. Okay. Well, go ahead. Do you have anything else on that, Don?
No, it's good. I mean, the fitness industry's been doing it forever, right? I go to LA Fitness, I buy a membership, and then they want me to work with the trainer. Why? Because they know if I'm with the trainer, I'm going to spend more time at the gym, and I'm not going to give up the gym membership. Because, just say, hey, you hit a bucket of balls each week. That's like going to the gym. Pretty soon you never go.
Yeah.
But if so, you're working with a coach and you're working with other people. There's something about letting down your coach. I'm not going to make it. But if there's 4 or 5 people that you brought to the game and you're all doing these camps and clinics together, come on, let's go. We're going. We can do it. We have to lean on this. Everybody's inviting people to this game. We have to give them products that they can do that with, led by a golf professional, PGA, LPGA, or otherwise, teaching them the love of the game. That's it. I mean, we have to do it now. We can't wait. As I've traveled the nation and I've talked to different sections and stuff, there is no doubt our best employees are getting killed right now because there's nobody underneath them. And so they're doing every job. I mean, this is an epidemic, I think, and we got to watch out or people are going to burn out, and we're going to be looking for managers, not just frontline staff.
Yeah, you're right. Our friend Dudley Darling from Massachusetts saying that online tee times, if golfers booked foursomes of airline seats, about 5% would miss their flights. Online tee times are also very impersonal, no personal touches. Oh, yeah, so that's a good point. All right. I mean, Dudley, what I would say is look at what the airlines have done in the airports, right? You walk into, you can book online if that's what you want to do, book your airline ticket. You could still call the airline if you wanted to, and someone will pick up the phone and you can book it that way. And you go to the airport, you see there's a line you can get into to talk to a human being to help you. And then there's a kiosk. So I think that to me is threading the needle on this, where you're offering a little bit of both. I don't think we're saying eliminate human interaction here completely. I think that would be one far side of the spectrum here. Although that's happening, and hotels are experimenting with this, where you get your digital room key on your Hilton app before you get to the property. You bypass the front desk, go right to your room. It tells you what room number you have, and you can use your phone. So there are things happening here, and I will say I think it's because it has to do with the art of self-service, right? I think the new definition of good service is when self-service has been executed eloquently. That and I love to use the example of the soda fountain at like Moe's or fast food joint. There was a day in time when that soda machine was behind the counter and you had to ask for your refill or whatever, and they moved it to the front of the counter. You can go help yourself, and that probably freed up some time of filling those cups of those customers always wanting the refills. So there's a balance here, I think, that will have to be achieved, and I think it's been out of balance in the golf industry for a while. And I think we're finding that this online tee time movement will probably, I think, help. And I couldn't ever see it going so far that we lose customers and we lose the touch. But his point is well taken. Don, any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue the opposite, Dudley. I would say if I've got less people answering the phone booking tee times, and I made those people, in a sense, greeters at the facility, right? I mean, if you dial this in with the technology, say, I know when people are coming, I know who's coming, I know what rate they paid, I know everything about them if I'm doing my job. And if I have golf professionals waiting for these people who are showing up, and they're like, hey, welcome, John, I saw you booked, and I can get to know people that way. I could turn a public facility into more of private if I knew who was coming and when, and they were just, and I didn't have to worry about answering the phone all the time. I really think there's a future here of golf professionals meeting and greeting and delivering them to the first tee, to the practice tee. I think that we got to utilize it more, maybe more into the hospitality business instead of just booking tee times. This could be a really good change.
Good discussion on this. Two quick points before we bring in our guests. One is we just announced that we have a partnership deal now with Global Golf Post and Jim Nugent, and that it's a great publication that they put out in the space. They just recently launched golf GGP Biz, Global Golf Post Business, and NGCOA members will get a special rate. So go to our website, folks. Look on the Smart Buy section. And you'll find that there's up to 50% off their new subscription rate for Global Golf Post, the business edition. Great. I love reading Global Golf Post. They do a wonderful job. Also, just to remind folks that we have a new Golf Business Live show out there. And this is kind of, I think, an indicator of what's to come. We launched recently Golf Business Live with Michael Williams. And, it's not just the Jay and Don show anymore. We've invited more talent into the picture here, and we're going to have more shows under the Golf Business Live channel, if you will. Michael Williams is a wonderful guy in our industry, a writer. He's a radio host in Washington, D.C., has been in the golf industry for many years now, and he's bringing on some interesting luminaries to his show, all under the Golf Business Live brand. So welcome to the family, Michael, on that, and we encourage our viewers to check his show out.
Jay, we have a spinoff. That's awesome. I love it.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's we're big time now, Don. In fact, next month marks our 2-year anniversary of launching this show together. 2 solid years, unabated, every month without fail.
2 years ago, I'll tell you, this show got me through it. It got me through COVID because it helped me every week just kind of collect myself, right, and keep my eye on the ball. So I'm sure there's a lot of out there, viewers who've watched this. Maybe we help them too. So it's cool.
We got to figure out a way to celebrate. We got to think of like who the April guest should be, and let's try to figure out a big one here and figure out how we can.
Maybe we bring in Jaws. Jaws was one of our first guys. Bring him in and do a little 2-year update on Jaws.
He was, and talk about Jaworski golf. That'd be great. Okay, let us bring on our guest this month, Jim Koppenhaver. Let's bring him on. There he is. Jim, how are you?
Gentlemen, and I use that word loosely.
Yes, you may. Let me tell everybody watching. So Jim is the president and founder of Pellucid Corp. It's a leading golf industry information and insight provider. He's got decades in technology and customer insights. He's a data geek with a capital G, I would say. He founded Pellucid in 2001 to what he would say to address the golf industry's need for accurate, unbiased information to support better business decisions for this industry. They are a smart buy partner of NGCOAs that our members save a little money on the Golf Market Research Center product, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we feature, Jim's findings in the NGCOA's online research center as well. We invite the industry to go to ngcoa.org and check out our online centers. But in this case, we've got our research center, and we do highlight like things like golf playable hours and performance that Jim puts out into the universe. And we're happy to kind of be an extra megaphone for what he's putting out there into the industry. So Jim, talk to me a little bit about, because, this is your first time on the show, although you and I have known each other for many years. And, for those that are watching and that will watch this through social media channels afterwards, what was the inspiration behind Pellucid? Take us back in time. Why did you do it? And, what's it been like overall the last, I guess 20 years that you've been at this?
Basically, why I did it was I got a peek into the golf industry when I was working. My background's in consumer packaged goods, and an entity, I won't name who, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we could apply some of that learning to golf." And I started looking at what the golf industry had for basic assets and how they used information. And it was, I'm just trying to be generous. I mean, it was Stone Age. And I thought, okay, so here I am. I'm going to bring fire to the natives and all this wisdom that I had learned in CPG, and they would just hold me up as God. And it's like, yes, yes. And here we are 20 years later. We have launched GMRC, so we have better monthly metrics now for about 100 courses. So it's just been a long journey and along the way, I partnered with Stuart Lindsay. And he's helped educate me that, golf is not CPG. So there are a lot of things in the application of information that you do have to do different in this business. We're going to talk about one of them here shortly, golf playable hours. So it's just been kind of a long journey. We're still at it. And as I look at it, it's a learning process for the folks that we're trying to educate. And I'm also learning as I go along as to how this industry is different and how that applies to information and insights, which is where we're ultimately trying to get to.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I love the anecdote there that bringing native to the fire to the natives and thinking everybody's going to hold you up as a god. I can't help but think of Edith Hamilton's mythology and all of the gods in the Greek and Roman, stories that you're in there now. You have a fixture in these gods and demigods somewhere in there, and it's always complicated. Nobody's ever all good or all bad, in these, if you really sit there and look at like the things that Zeus did and what have you. So, but I'm glad that you're still around. You've had a great staying power here, certainly in a difficult thing. So, all right, let me ask you this. You've got the benchmarking program now out there, and you've had fits and starts at different things like this. The industry has had fits and starts and attempts at, when we had performance track and all these things. Why the hell can't we figure this out? Why has it not scaled and, gotten the participation that the hotel industry has in logging our key performance indicators and pumping out good, data? Why is it? I get it. We're fragmented. But is that it? Is that the only reason? What do you think is the biggest obstacle to data euphoria here?
No, I sit up at night and think of this, which is a scary thought. But as I think about it, the thing that I've learned, a couple of key points. The first one is everybody is fixated on benchmarking when the first step is performance tracking. So it's kind of like I was joking around. I was talking to an operator this morning. I said, the challenge here is everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So it's like everybody is telling me, Jim, I'll be all in GMRC when we have enough courses to compare against. So the problem is everybody's sitting on the sidelines waiting for critical mass to happen. So what we did with GMRC is we said the primary benefit of GMRC is not benchmarking. It start with understanding your course's performance, integrate the weather, put comparative metrics on one page, give a market profile so you know the larger market that you're operating in. So the first thing is we need to reposition this as the reason we do this information collection and you should participate is to better understand your course's performance. When we get enough courses in Chicago, we will allow you and we'll give you visibility responsibly as the information provider to say how you're doing against Chicago. When we get enough Chicago public value courses, we will expose you and your numbers to the Chicago public value, and then we're at STAR. Then and for the folks who don't know, Jay and Don know this, the STAR, the Smith Travel Reporting and the hospitality, that is the lingua franca for hotels, and eventually where we will get, if I live long enough and if we get people to gradually come along and realize that you have to participate up front even though you don't get to see everything, then we'll get there. So that's number one. The second one, and Jay, you and I have talked about this, is when Randy Smith started STAR, he had the benefit of there were 4 major hospitality providers and he came out of Hyatt. So it was Hyatt, Starwood, who am I missing here? Hilton,
Marriott.
and Marriott. So there's the 4. And with that, he had 30% of the universe covered. Our challenge is, even with the management companies, we don't have anywhere near 30% covered. So the other thing that doesn't work for us is, and I'm going to say this with love, the management companies haven't embraced this. So we're basically, what we're picking up, the early adopters of this are the single owner operators and the small regionals. We've got 7 or 8, 5 to 10 course management companies out there. So we're not getting kind of that lever to work. And the POS providers, Jay, you and I talked about this, 5 years ago. The POS providers have not jumped in behind it and said, look, if the course is one, it will make it available electronically. They've basically kind of sat back and said, we're not sure that we want to do this. So
let me stop you there for a second. And I know Don's been part of these discussions for years as well. So, jump in on some of this too, Don. You know how I like to monopolize the Q&A portion of this. You're muted. Maybe I did that on purpose.
Muted myself on purpose.
He's biting his tongue.
That's the first step to solving a problem, Jay, is recognizing there is one. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. So, all right, let's I'm going to have a lot of questions for you, but let's stop on this one. Why have the software companies not been willing to play ball in an earnest way? Like, you know what, we see the value in this. We're going to create a bridge to the data, and we're going to give, we're going to have an apparatus here where a course can just volunteer to participate in the data, and theirs goes through. And if you don't want to do it, yours doesn't go through. What's been the hang up there? Why haven't they? What's your guess on that?
Okay, so this is Jim's opinion. I'm going to foreshadow this. Jim's opinion. There are 2 primary rationales. One is they're busy and they have product development roadmaps just like anybody else does. I have a product development roadmap on what I'm going to work on next. So in all fairness to them, part of it is, where do I put this thing in my product development roadmap? And if there's only 10 of my 300 customers who are banging my door to do this, then it just doesn't get, enough noise to make it into my product roadmap. The other one that I talked this morning with, I was talking to Hung Chow up at Virtue Golf Club in Columbus, Ohio. So it's the old Longaberger facility. The other one that he mentioned is, he said, and we won't name names, but he said, my software provider, when I come to them with things like this, they say, we can do that. And I said, yeah, they can do it, but they've been saying they can do it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we actually have built it and deployed it now. And we're still hearing from some of the software providers that we don't want to participate because we could do it. And it's like, we'll either do it or get in the game. And again, you guys know me, I'm kind of blunt, so I apologize. But it's like, hey, poop or get off the pot here, guys. You're this big POS technology company. If that's what you are, it's not acceptable to say to your clients, I'm not going to do it because I could.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't argue with that logic because there is none.
Do you think with the large management companies, I see a similar theme here with the large management companies, that, the value they provide their own clients could be in that benchmarking. So, look at Troon. I remember visiting Billy Casper, then, changed to Indigo. I remember visiting their headquarters in Vienna, Virginia, and they have just they had a data shop in their headquarters. I thought, if they can provide benchmarking as a client service, hey, we've got 150 golf courses, then, that becomes their competitive advantage, is doing that. And so is that probably another roadblock? And I think even though software companies aren't doing the benchmarking, full benchmarking, I think they could. I think that's what's holding people back, is that, wow, I've aggregated 100 courses, or I've aggregated 500 courses, either under management or my platform. I have the ability to do these things, so I'm not going to participate and support and aid and abet a national data project.
Ding, ding, ding. If you look at it, and I mean, we've had this conversation, again, I won't name names, we've had it with all of them, but some of them have been more candid than others and said, look, Jim, I already know the results from 15 courses in the Chicago area. And I feel that gives me a competitive advantage, that I can say, I know that. But my comment is, how courses perform that run under your management system. That's an interesting fact and great, but you don't know how you're doing against the other 100 out there. So I think part of it is, yes, there's a little bit of, this is an advantage for me, and I've hired resources and have them to do that. Part of it is I don't necessarily want to level the playing field that quickly because I think it's an advantage. And the other part, if all three of us are honest with each other, is if you open the kimono to expose your facilities to the benchmarking thing, you may find out that you're not killing it. And what I love about the charter members and our early subscribers are they are people who want the unvarnished truth because they can deal with it then. So they are people who are saying, I know that my numbers might not look great in GMRC in the beginning, but I can deal with it now, like Don's problem with the microphone. If I know the problem, I can deal with it. I mean, those are the people who are embracing it. And I think there's a little bit, and again, I'm just being brutally honest, there's a little bit of, we're not sure we want to put ours in the pot because it might not turn out the way that we'd like to turn out. So I get it. They're running a business. So I get and understand all those reasons. And the other one, quite frankly, that comes up, which I can't help them with, is they look at it and say, well, I've got 100 courses and it's $500 a year. So you're basically asking me to write Pellucid a $50,000 check. And it's like, well, yeah, that's just the economics of numbers, folks. It's still $500 a course.
Right.
If you want to run it up to 100 courses, yes, that is a check. But we're basically saying we think we can help you run your facility better. And if you run 100 facilities better, you get more benefit than the guy who only is paying us one $500 check for one facility. That's just math and Jay, your high school economics. You were ahead of me. I didn't get to economics till college. So.
Well, the only C I got in college was in my economics class, and it was the semester I pledged the fraternity. But we won't get into that. So, Don, how do you feel about some of these comments? Do you feel like they're accurate? Do you feel like they're, what's it going to take to crack the code on scale?
No, I agree with all of it. I mean, Jim, rest easy. You were the one who gave me fire. When I started reading Pellucid, it was the first one it was the first magazine that I read that was unbiased, that was giving me the information. I had drank the Kool-Aid from the information I was getting and thought everything was fine. But Pellucid was just this, wow, to me. I mean, don't get a big head. But when I met you for the first time, I was like, wow, this is the guy. Because the stuff you read, I would have to reread it several times because of the math that was in it. I just really wanted to fully understand. I almost just feel like as an industry, why do we yell at the blood work? In my sense, you were giving me blood work saying that I was sick, and I'm mad that you're giving me, I'm yelling at the doctor that my cholesterol's high and I got high blood pressure. Why don't I just say, okay, so how do I fix it? And you've always been beat up just for giving the blood work of the industry with your state of the industry that you do every year. And I just really, if a golf course owner or operator, PJ, LPJ, or otherwise, isn't subscribing to your newsletter, isn't getting your state of the industry, they are not getting the data they need to be successful. That's just a fact. And the GMRC, I mean, I was happy to sign up early because the same reason we were saying, I mean, why wouldn't you want to be part of measuring your performance? And if you're a good management company, what do you have to hide? If you are better than the others, wouldn't you want to prove it with third-party verification, not just you beating your own chest in your Madison Avenue marketing presentation, trying to get owners to sign up for the management? So I think we're all saying the same thing. I think measuring your performance has to happen. And I do think some of the biggest point of sale companies out there, it's almost like the smoking industry. They didn't want you to know that you could die from smoking. They were selling packs of cigarettes to everybody. And so now all of a sudden they don't want everybody to know that what they've been doing for years is really not good for their health, their long-term health. And so I just really, I've always looked at you as that way. You were simply telling me what's wrong with me and I had to decide. And now you've actually, you've codified it. You put it into a product that for a little more than $1 a day, I can see how well I'm doing. Why wouldn't I do that? I just think if there's a primary care physician out there for the golf industry, it's you. And for them not to ask that, then that's on them.
I'd like to say we're going to take a commercial break here, but we just did the commercial. Okay.
That's how I feel, man. I just been reading it forever. And Stuart's the perfect egg to your ham, like Jay wants to call me. He's a curmudgeon. God bless that man, because he's not afraid to calling something out in our industry, and we need more of them. We just do.
And I appreciate the compliment, and I'm humbled by that compliment, Don.
Let me use that blood work metaphor. I love it. It's a great metaphor, right? Like, okay, you got the blood work. They're facts. And so, Jim, you've been accused and labeled as to be the contrarian. You're going to look at that blood work and you might say, now I'm carrying the metaphor too far here, but it's like, oh, your cholesterol's too high, you might die next week, or you're this is not. But you know what? Maybe the white blood count cells are really good or whatever. There's just been this label on you that you focus on the negative, right?
Yep.
And do you feel like that's a fair criticism? And now you got the benefit of hindsight now, obviously, and we're in a different environment right now than we were ever since you really started this. So talk to me about that criticism of you being a contrarian, that the sky is always cloudy, in the industry. Has that been fair at all?
Yeah, I think that there is some fairness in it as I look at it. So if we dial the clock back to the beginning, I basically arrived on the scene and we started saying some things that were counter to the industry. And we didn't really come into it with a contrarian bent. We came into it with a realist bent. And then what happened was several of the organizations in the industry weren't happy about our presence. And so basically for the next 3 or 4 years, there was an all-out assault on Pellucid. So in retrospect, part of my cynicism was, I was fighting for my life back then. And people were saying, hey, Jim's not relevant. He's so far out of touch with reality. And so I answered fire with fire. So as I look back on it, was that the smartest thing? Probably not. But what we have done in the past 4 or 5 years is Stuart and I have both made a conscious effort to say, hey, if we're going to level a criticism, let's look for it. It's like good journalism. You basically say, here's what the storyline is, but you go look for people with opposing opinions to put in the story and say, there are people who think differently. Here's their quotes. So we've done a better job at that. And I think the real indicator for us is when the industry turned around, if we were the true cynics that everybody said we were, we would have continued to find for the past 3 years the most negative story we could. We have been at the forefront of saying, hey, COVID was good. We've said, hey, we got more golfers. Now, we didn't get the golfers that other people say. They're saying we got younger and females and diversity. Our data says we did get younger. We didn't get enough more females to make a difference. We were at 25% female. We're at 27%. Somebody wake me up when we get to 30. And diversity, the diversity needle has not moved meaningfully. So my challenge back to the people who have said that we're the cynics of the industry, we just follow the numbers, folks. And when those numbers went positive, we were people out there at the forefront saying all of these things are positive metrics. So, right now, the contrarian stance that we're taking, Jay, and I don't know whether you want to get into it or not, but just around weather is we're looking at it and we're saying, hey, we're starting to see the rounds are leveling off and declining. What we watch is utilization. Because what we're getting is some months are going up and some are going down. It's like, okay, what's the actual trend here?
All right, I'm gonna stop you there because what I want you to do, Jim, is go over and talk to our audience about some of those basic KPIs that you do talk about a lot. You talk about utilization, RevPAR, velocity. Nobody who introduced the word velocity to the golf industry when it comes to metrics, right? Golf playable hours. Go over those definitions for us, if you don't mind, and we can even Taylor will take a clip out of this and be able to put this out on social. Just the clip on. Give us the definitions here that I think every course owner or operator really should have in their lexicon.
Yep, absolutely. So we use 6 in the GMRC. Let's start at the top of the waterfall. Revenue. Revenue is king. So we in this industry have counted rounds forever. And the last time I checked, nobody takes rounds to the bank. So counting rounds is good. That's our volume metric, but it's like me and CPG. I didn't count bottles of barbecue sauce. I counted dollars. And I didn't really care if I sold fewer bottles of barbecue sauce. As long as I sold them at a higher price, I was okay. Revenue is the cardinal metric. Rounds is next. Rate, which is just revenue divided by rounds. Now where it gets really interesting is below those 3. Everybody out there is now saying, Jim, I got that. I've been doing that for a while. I got it. Okay. Capacity rounds. What are capacity rounds? Capacity rounds are how many rounds could you have played based on daylight and weather? And you guys were debating in this first thing, this daylight savings time thing. And that's a very interesting observation. Jay, I'm kind of in your camp. We benefit greatly here in the northern climes. I'm based in Chicago, for those of you who don't know me. We benefit greatly in the summer from lots of what Stuart calls recreational daylight. It's daylight till 9:30 here at the peak of June when we're in, and we benefit greatly from that. So capacity rounds starts with Are you in season? So we use temperatures to do that for every golf course in the country. It then says when sunrise and sunset, and it backs off time from sunrise and sunset, recognizing that you don't put somebody on the first tee as soon as the sun peaks up. The grounds crew generally has to be out there prepping the golf course, and people don't step off to play 9 holes 2 minutes before sunset. And then we take what's left now of those hours and we apply hourly weather variables. What's the temperature for that hour? What is the precipitation? What's the relative temperature? So Don, for you, it's the heat index. For me, it's the wind chill here in Chicago. And wind speed, one of the things we learned early on, Stuart and I did, was generally that sustained winds in excess of 10 knots are not friendly to people playing golf. So now what we do is we apply all those rules and we basically say, so that constitutes a golf playable hours. We add all those up. We basically say if you had a foursome on the first tee for every one of those playable hours, and we use 8 and 9 alternating tee times as our standard throughput, we basically say that's how many rounds your factory, your golf course could have produced. So here in Chicago, it's about 60,000 a year on an average year. So that's in the GMRC. We tell you what the capacity rounds were for this past month and whether that's up or down. And that drives the 2 key metrics that we follow, which is RevPAR, which is revenue per available round, not the revenue per played round, but how well did you use your factory to drive revenue, and utilization, which is the played rounds against the capacity rounds. And the reason we use those metrics is if your revenue goes up 10%, and it was all due to, and weather went up 15%, you didn't maximize your factory given what Mother Nature gave you to work with. And that will show up in your RevPAR. Your RevPAR is going to go down in that situation.
Does utilization account for whether a round was 18 holes or 9 holes if it was on an 18-hole golf course?
Nope.
Okay. Well, would you feel like if 9-hole rounds went up in that sense that the course is being underutilized because they're not playing the whole course or not getting the full the full revenue for that?
No, where that's going to show up in our scorecard is your utilization is going to look similar to your peer group because a round is a round is a round. Your RevPAR will be lower because, Jay, to your point, you're getting less revenue for that trip because at 9 holes, you're only getting $26. And if that person were playing 18, you'd be getting 42 or whatever the number is. Okay. So that'll show up in RevPAR, not in utilization.
Good. All right. We have a question from our YouTube channel. From Michael Raby. Where do you get the weather data to determine golf playable hours?
Yep. So Stuart and I realized early on that we are not meteorologists by trade. So we went out and looked for a partner to do that, to partner with. And we hooked up with a company that was called WeatherBank in the beginning. WeatherBank subsequently got acquired by AccuWeather. And I think most of you folks on the phone know AccuWeather. So through our partnership with AccuWeather. So kind of the game was, WeatherBank in the beginning said, we don't want to be a market maker for golf. It's too fragmented. It's too small. We don't want to figure that out. We said we would be happy to be a market maker for golf, and we actually know the rules to use for golf. That was the other problem is they said, we have lots of weather data laying around here. We don't know how to apply it to golf. So basically, AccuWeather is the engine underneath. We have about 2,000 courses nationally for which weather data is collected hourly from yesterday to 10 years ago for every one of those stations. We apply our golf playable hour rules and capacity math that I just explained to you to it, and that's how we do it.
So what's your margin of error on, let's say, if AccuWeather reports here on Daniel Island that it was, raining to a certain degree, whether it's drizzling or raining, and would you consider that, well, then the golf course is closed? That would be, and then you've still got people out there playing. So are you beating the golf playable hours? Are you kind of overperforming if the GPH said it should have been this, but you got, talk to me about the intersection of that.
Your audience out there is probably going, wow, don't take this guy down this rabbit hole, Jay. Because he seems very willing to go down it. So here's the challenge in this whole thing, and it'll be a nice segue into foresight, which is the forecasting capability. So when we sat down to do this, we had everybody known to man ask us every question about, what about this situation? What about that situation? Hurricane blows through, Jim. Trees are down, 2 feet of standing water, but it's 80 degrees the next day. The fact is, to run this type of system nationally on yesterday's weather, you have to create some rules and you have to enforce those rules consistently. So to your point, Jay, absolutely. Are there situations and conditions? So a great example would be here in Chicago. So right now we're getting days that pop up in the 50s and 55s, and they're putting rounds out in the golf course. The way we've built the model, we say a single 50-degree day does not constitute the course opening. So they're actually getting utilization advantage because they're running rounds through, and we're saying from a golf playable hours, this course isn't open yet. So it's a two-sided sword. Sometimes the rules work in their favor. Sometimes they work against them. But we've put a lot of thought into this, and I'm happy to. Anybody who calls me up and says, Jim, I want to debate weather data and golf applications with you, it's like, bring it on, brother. Stuart and I have been doing this for 12 years. And Don's laughing because he knows that we have a penchant, to get into the details. But what it does do, Jay, that you mentioned is, so one of the big objections we got, Cognologic looks at historical weather. So there is no variance or was it or wasn't it. It simply looks at the weather that was and as recorded. One of the key objections that we got when people wouldn't sign up for Cognologic, our historical weather tracking, was, I don't look at history, Jim. I look at the future. And so before I stop and laugh out loud, I say, okay, so let me get this analogy. Last year, you overspent your checking account by $10,000. But on the 1st of January, because that was last year, you don't go look in your check registry to figure out why the heck that happened. You just simply blithely on January 1 say, I'm going to go and do better this year. I said, you don't do that. And they're like, no, I don't. And I said, that's
we do.
Okay.
People do that. I think Jim, I hate to be flippant about that. I think people do that. And so that's why you have trouble sometimes, or we all have trouble scaling this stuff, because they're not necessarily thinking of it like that.
So Stuart and I, being enterprising people, they said, if you could bring me, the holy grail would be if you could bring me capacity rounds forecast, now I'm a player. So Stuart and I went off, and it took us a year and a half working with AccuWeather. And we said, we want to apply your forecast information by day for the next 60 days to any given golf course in the country. And we built an application called Foresight, and that's exactly what it does. So basically for Don there, he can dial in through his GMRC login credentials, and he can hit the Foresight button, and it will tell him the capacity rounds forecast by day for the next 60 days. It will tell him the high temperature forecast, the low temperature forecast, the precip, and how those vary versus last year and the 10-year norm.
Now, when is this forecasting data going to be artificially intelligently linked to dynamic pricing, so that when the weather looks perfect, the rates might increase, and when the forecasting is bad, do you actually soften your price? Do you think that would be do you see that developing in our industry where they could actually be tied together automatically?
We have had that conversation with some of the dynamic pricing folks, and they say that's a wonderful idea.
We're full of ideas.
It's a wonderful idea. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the poor man's way to do it is what our clients are doing right now with GMRC, is they're using the Foresight application and looking at their tee sheet, and they're manually marrying them up and saying, hey, my Foresight application says in 5 days, the weather is going to be conducive for 200 rounds on my golf course, and I have booked 10. I got a problem. So they're doing that manually, but as is the case, and Jay, you and I have talked about this at trade shows over the years, we just make it too friggin' hard for the average operator to do this stuff. They're busy people. Our job as a technology and information and insights company is to make it easy. We think that we're doing our part to try and make it easy. We feel like we just don't have willing partners in the conversations we've had that are willing to put that effort forth, but we're making progress on it.
I got a question, Jay. I mean, Jim, you're in the industry. I mean, this just sounds like something Disney would be doing, right? I mean, what do they do? I got to believe if I'm a revenue manager at Disney, now that everything's dynamically priced and I got to forecast out to make sure and see how my summer is going to be in Florida based on historical weather, even though I know the weather can change. I mean, what other do you think Disney's doing something like this, or are they? Do you know?
I absolutely know they are. I mean, here's an example. I don't think this is proprietary, but I mean, we were having a conversation with Golf Now a year ago, and Golf Now said, we've got people over in the theme parks division who know something about weather and already use it in that division. We're trying to port it back over to the golf side and figure out how to apply it. It's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. So yeah, I know at least one example where they're used in that type of thing. And I guarantee you, Disney, I had a chance to work with Disney as a service provider about 10 years ago in my career. They're very smart. They're good at using information. I absolutely know that they're using it to do that.
Let me ask you this, Jim, because I mean, you've got your own data that you've got, visibility into, and you see what, others are putting out there in the industry. I'm sure you study that as well. I know you do. What are some of the bright spots that you're seeing in the data these days, and what are your concerns?
As far as bright spots in the trends of the
performance.
Yeah. So here are the highlights in my mind. We were given a tremendous benefit from COVID, and it was a twofold benefit. One was new golfers. And as I mentioned, what we saw, I mean, right now, last year, our call was 2.9 million people took up the game of golf who had never played it before. So that was a great thing. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in ours, we did second year tracking on them. We retained about 40% of them. And so 60% of them tried it and didn't come back. And it's not saying, I mean, some people only play every other year, but it basically says we didn't do a great job. It wasn't an awful job. We didn't do a great job at establishing a relationship and building a communication stream with them. And one of the things that we noticed that was interesting, again, a little bit disappointing, was we attracted an above average number of females, but they left us at a much higher rate. The people who stuck were disproportionately male. So we also didn't make a connection with the female species, and something we've been trying to do for years is to how do we get these people to stick. The other good thing that we saw was that they came in at a higher frequency than our new golfers in the past. So our new golfers in the past that we've tracked have come in at like 2 to 3 rounds a year. The COVID golfers came in at 7 to 8. So one of the interesting things, and one of the reasons that they stuck, what we saw was the people who played more than 5 in their inaugural year had a much higher retention rate. So the good news and the highlight is we attracted a bunch of new blood. We kept it. We didn't change the dynamic of our consumer base, but we kept a decent amount of it, 40%. And if we got them to a certain frequency and engagement, our retention level was much higher. So it gives us a blueprint and a roadmap in my mind for player development and the things we have to do to be successful in the future. The one that we're not doing, and again, this comes back to, this is another application that we pioneered years ago. We're not doing a good job at identifying at the email level who's new, who's lost, who's valuable, and who's ascending and descending in their engagement with the golf course. So that's an application that Stuart invented before Jim came on the scene, called customer franchise analysis. And we work with Club Caddy as one of your sponsor here, is one of the POS providers who have worked with us to say that's a capability we want to be able to give our clients, is to make that connection. Club Profit is the other one currently that is working with us to do that. And basically it starts to take apart, if it's a new customer, we need to hit them a week later with, hey, we noticed you came and played the course, come back. If it's somebody who hasn't come back for this season, you need to do kind of what Stuart and I call the drip campaign. Every month, you need to be hitting them with an email that says, hey, you played our course last year. You haven't been back this year. What can we do to get you back here? And this is a little bit different. Some of the POS providers have what they call a defector program, but their defector program is, we'll email to somebody who hasn't played in 90 days. Well, as Stuart astutely points out, the problem is after 90 days elapses, those people who are 120 fall off your list. And what Stuart cleverly did, and when he put this together for Harry Ipama back at 4, is we want to keep after those people. I don't care if they fell off the list at 120 days. So what he built before Jim was, at the end of the season, we start with, here's 10,000, well, it's 2,000 average golf course. Here's 2,000 people who played your course last year. In April, you send them all a note that says, season's opening, come back and play. Some of them come back and play in April. Fine. We run it again at the end of April, and now we take those people off the list. But now everybody else that we didn't see in April, we send them another thing in May. Another 100 come back in May. We take them off the list. Everybody else gets one in June. And applying that process, Stuart has had great success with the CFA. And we get 20 to 30% of those defectors back by the end of the season just by staying after them.
Mm.
That's the kind of capability that we need to build into the POS systems, and that needs to be available to the golf courses so that they click a button and it actually happens.
Wow, excellent. I'm going to close the show with one question that came up on NGCOA's Accelerate platform, where the owners are discussing, problem solving together and sharing ideas. And there was an owner of a public golf course. I find this very interesting. There's psychology in there. There's math in here. This is like using all the liberal arts, classes. So the owner was basically saying, or cautioning the industry, the other owner operators, like he's seeing golf course operators raise prices because they can, just because they can. And that went against a sensibility that I guess he had, and a concern he probably has for the industry, in that, kind of be careful here. Where's the humility? Where, in this, if we suffer from hubris, then, we could, a self-inflicted wound could happen here. But, there's the perception that golf is too expensive. You can't afford it, what have you. So there's that in the brain. Think, if we price it too expensive, then people won't come. But at the same time, we're in this high demand market, and we haven't had a high demand situation in almost a generation, if you really stop and look, right? And so you're seeing confidence come back into the rate question, and they're finally going up, maybe for the first time, maybe in 10, 15 years for some golf courses.
Yep.
So, what do you say to the concern out there of, hey, be careful of raising prices too much, because X could happen. A lot goes into that, but what do you think? What do you think is the right answer to a golf course operator like that?
And this is Jim's opinion, because you're right, Jay. This is an intuitive question. This is not Jim, the analyst. This is Jim, the observer of the industry. My sense is you need to be reasonable in the pricing that you take. So in other words, everybody is sensitive. When gas prices go up 70 cents a gallon, and I understand the dynamics behind that, but that's a huge shift for a consumer in a short period of time. So my caution is, as a golf course operator, you reasonably cannot take your rate from $40 to $55 in one fell swoop. Just a test of reasonableness. But on the other hand, the consumer will balance the market. Don't try and play God here and think that you're responsible for protecting the interests of the consumer. The consumer will protect their own interest, and they will reward the golf courses that they believe are a fair value with their play. So 2 things: be reasonable and let the consumer be the determinant of what's, gouging or too far too fast. They will level the market. I guarantee you, with 63 years experience on this earth, the one thing that I know is that consumers will always level the marketplace.
Yeah. That is the marketplace, the tension between supply and demand, right? And the tension has been possibly favoring the supply side for the last 2 years. And, but I do respect certainly that we need to approach everything we're doing with the proper humility. Because I think we did suffer from hubris 25 years ago, thinking, well, of course they'll continue coming. I don't need to change the way I operate. I don't need to change the way I'm doing. I already have a line out the door, so I don't need to change anything. And we've gone through a tough recession, and 15 plus years of precipitous decline in some of these KPIs. So I think we all have, and Don and others have been operators, have that humility built in. I think because we've gone through it, like you said, Don. You probably have young people that don't even remember the times when things were good. And so context is important here. But no, good words of advice there, Jim. Anything for you, Don, for that owner that's saying that?
No, I just think we have to train our staffs to understand a price-sensitive person and a time-sensitive person. You can see the look on their face when they get a little sticker shock. Well, work them towards a price-sensitive product then. And I think if you do that, you can actually try to get a win-win there.
Or move them to a value time. That's the other alternative. Is somebody says, hey, I'm not willing to pay $55. And you say, after 3 o'clock, I'm perfectly happy to put you on the course for $40. Can you do that?
Yeah, a lot of golf courses are getting rid of their annual prices, their annual passes and stuff. I get it. I'm still doing some. I just, I'm a par 61. It's all a bunch of winter visitors. I really feel like I need some type of price sensitive product. There are people that are price sensitive. So to just throw that out and just go 100% dynamic pricing, I get it. The math says I should do that all, but I'm sorry. I'm just going to hang back a little bit and try to take care of the people who have been taking care of me because they're price sensitive. But
I mean, yeah, that's a customer relationship, a CRM field in your database could be as simple as these people are price sensitive. We know that because we know our customer. These people are more time sensitive. They're not price sensitive. And you limit your promotions, your price promotions to the price sensitive market instead of the others. I mean, some of us are fortunate that we're more time sensitive than we are price sensitive when it comes to just getting out and playing golf. And, that's another layer that you can filter your database by. If you're, Jim, I talk about euphoria here, data utopia. We're all data geeks here. And we want to see the promised land on this stuff, right? We'll keep pushing that boulder up the hill together. So I appreciate your time, Jim. You're smart. You're a good friend to NGCOA. I love our conversations over the years, and I look forward to many more. So appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. And if there's anything else I can do to help, let me know.
You got it. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into the show. We'll see you next month for the 2-year anniversary show of Golf Business Live. Take care.